Okay, let's get here. Okay, so I think we are set on both LinkedIn and Facebook, so we should start seeing some people come in. Now, I want to first thing we didn't talk about is how to say your last name, which I think is really important. Maybe you could give me on how to say it so I don't butcher it.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ilma Nausedaite, but you can call me Ilma.
Nausedaite. Okay, almost. Fantastic. That's close enough, right? Well, I appreciate you coming on here and being, like I said, my first of this remote weekly spotlight series, where we're aiming to spread this awesome knowledge of remote work, both from the company perspective, so how companies can build distributed teams and lead effectively in some of the craziest times that we've seen. And then in addition, how people can really get to understand like what makes these remote companies tick. So Ilma, I want to start by saying you're the co-owner and CEO of MailerLite, which is more than just an email marketing platform, but a platform that you can create automations, landing pages, pop-ups, surveys, all with 24/7 support. And you guys have an office headquartered in Lithuania, but you're truly with no requirement to come into that office, although you have told me that people do go into the office for the coffee, which we will talk about. But the first thing that I wanted to bring up is this 24/7 support thing, which you're able to do, have over 70 people in 21 countries. So tell me, what is it organization across 11 time zones with such a diverse cultural background?
So I think customer support and our wish to have 24/7 customer support was the main goal why we started hiring remotely. And to begin with, we had colleagues taking care of our customers in the United States. And with them, we learned how to work remotely with a team. And after a while, it made no sense, to have an office or to ask people to come to the office or to hire only Lithuanians. So for now, I think for 5 years, we are remote first organization. We do have an office, but I'm saying that it's co-working space more, because it's up to you. You can come, but you won't miss anything if you're not in the office. So in the office, we have around 10 people, and we are a team of 76 right now.
Wow. And in 22 countries. So what is it like? That is such a diverse group of people. How do you create a culture around that much diversity?
I think it's really our competitive advantage that we are so diverse. I think we have less blind spots, and we do realize that we are super different and we have different backgrounds, different knowledge. So this is why I think every time we have a discussion, everybody has an opinion and they're really loud in telling that. So I think for us it's just even tiny details, we have to think about the way we talk, for example, and what kind of words we use, being that diverse. And I think it's always good to be consciously thinking how you're communicating with your customers or inside your team.
Yeah. So if I'm a company and I have people across different countries and a discussion, a conversation, I want to make sure everybody feels a part of it. What are some ways that you feel MailerLite does that very well, like some techniques?
So I think the first thing when you're working in 11 different time zones, it means that quite often it's really complicated to have a proper meeting. For example, marketing team, they're doing none of the meetings at all, because we're just, there's a girl in Chicago and then another one in Australia and then some people in between. So it means that every time we have a discussion or we want to make a discussion, we are doing a pitch. So pitch is a document where we write what the issue is, and we write how we see it, what can be done about it. And then it's like a document where everybody can brainstorm and come up with different ideas. I think it actually works pretty well for us, because when you're communicating in writing, it means that all people have different, like the same kind of, you don't care if they're like either introverted or extroverted, because everybody can take time and write the message and express their opinion on a thing. And I think in writing, we are like, especially when we're talking about work-related discussions, it's really good because people do think what they write before. And sometimes even writing a pitch, you start writing the pitch, but while, coming up with arguments to understand, there's like no point, I don't know, to have that discussion, let's say. So everything, the whole communication, it's most of it, it's done in written format. Mm-hmm. And it allows everybody to participate in that.
I think that's a really good point that we want to stop on, is that when you're focusing on remote communication and meetings, you have to be very aware especially over that many time zones. You have to be very aware that the meeting, because if you're making someone stay up late or have to wake up early, with sometimes the sacrifice that to be working at a distributed organization, it needs to be a necessary meeting, something that couldn't be done via email or asynchronous communication. So has there been, like, maybe you can speak to the ratio of meetings that just get canceled? Is there a certain number that are just like, hey, we don't actually need to have a meeting about that?
Well, we're having as few meetings as possible. And all the meetings that we're having, we are planning them at least 1 month in advance. So everybody would know exactly when and where they have to be. Because for us, we are like really diverse, and like we're in different time zones. So for us, it's kind of an issue why we can't have a meeting. But I think the advantage out of that is that a lot of people, they do have a lot of uninterrupted time that they can plan and just work and do the job good. So for a long time, actually, as a team, we used to have only one meeting in a month, one video call in a month. And it was with the entire team, and it was non-work related. Because I think, when you're working remotely, quite often you are like, you can just work with a team and have only work-related relationships. But we are a team of human beings, and we do need to connect. And I think video is something that is really great way to connect. So during that monthly remote meeting, we would have one topic, for example, something that inspired me last month. And everybody's talking about that. Or a book that I just read, in last month. And it was really easy and fun way for us to connect, even though we are a lot of miles away. And I think having non-work related meetings is even more important than having, video meetings for discussion. I think you can have a lot of, especially work related discussions, you can have them in the documents, because they're like really right. It's all about market arguments and facts and figures and I don't know.
So you touched a bit, not having something that is not about work. So you have a theme, but how do you break that up? Are people in small groups, or is the meeting open to everybody? Like how does it actually get to each person to talk in that kind of a conversation?
So we used to have with the entire team when we're up to 50 people. Now it's really complicated because it would take, several hours just talking about the things. Then now we have 4 separate groups, but we record all the meetings. And if you are in our team, you can watch all the meetings that were held. And then, I'm talking a bit, and then I'm just saying who's next talking about the favorite book, let's say. So this way, I think it's really important to understand for people that why they need to do that. And I think in order to be successful in a remote team, you do have to have team members that really advocate for that, and they understand why they have to over communicate maybe sometimes, and why they have to join these meetings.
Yeah. So let's talk about over communication and asynchronous communication in general. What are some of the guidelines that you have for communicating these different time zones? And we did talk about the meetings, which is great because you have a document that everybody works from. But is there other guidelines you have around asynchronous communication?
I think the way we write messages is a bit different, maybe, because when you write a message and you don't expect to have answer as soon as possible, you write it a bit differently. You include all the needed links inside the message, and when somebody replies, they're not saying that I'm gonna look at it tomorrow. It's better if you are really time precise, saying that until 4 p.m. I'm gonna answer the question, let's say. I think it's really important to inform your team as much as possible when and what you are planning to do. And even on Slack channel, we want everybody to update their statuses, saying, for example, that I'm at deep work right now, and I won't be able, I won't be able to communicate in like this, like next 2 or 3 hours, or I'm at the gym, right now, or something, or I'm on vacation until May, let's say. So I think you just have to think about other people, and be really informative, in your messages, not just, hey, help me, someone. I think it's better if you name person that you want to get help from.
And be very, very specific. I totally agree with that, and that's how I've seen it work within the remote organizations that I've worked in. I'm curious so an employee is looking to establish their schedule, say, like, I'm going to go to the gym at this time every day, or I'm going to take this vacation. How do they approach that with management?
We do have an app for our holidays. So when you want to have a vacation, you just put it on, and the manager has to approve. The thing that we're asking is just to make sure that there will be another colleague that is working on the same things online at that time, so that not everybody will be on vacation at the same time. Together with vacation, we have one more interesting thing. We have 4 days free kind of holidays that we call Creative Day. So once in a quarter, you can get a day off doing anything that is creative. You can go to the museum, you can hike, you can cook. But at the same time, we do want people just to say that right now on Creative Day, I'm gonna come back tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. That seems fair enough. Now, when someone's first being onboarded, you did mention some different things that you do. One of those being Pecha Kucha. I'd love for you to kind of run through what that looks like and any crazy, funny stories you may have about what someone's presentation was.
Yeah. So we are, as a team, we're meeting twice a year, and I think it's really crucial for any remote team to meet personally. So 2 times a year we are meeting for 1 week, and we're spending the time together. Usually we're going to some exotic destination like, I don't know, Miami, Panama, or Bali, or Azores. And then every time we're having a meeting, our new team members, they have to do a Pecha Kucha presentation about themselves. So this is a presentation with 20 slides that are changing automatically in 20 seconds. And it's really fun, because it's like, the first thing is that on the first evening, they can connect with everyone that is doing Pecha Kucha tomorrow, because they are all kind of nervous about it. And for them, it's first time meeting the whole team. It's really like a bit extreme situation, People they're super creative about Pecha Kucha. Some of them they're telling the whole life story. Some of them they're just mentioning fun stuff about them. But for us, it really helps to connect with people and to find these topics that we are all into. And since we all did it, so we already have something in common. We all did Pecha Kuchas, and then we filmed the Pecha Kuchas, and we have that on our documentation about the whole team. So every team member, they have like, let's say, a baseball card or something, like a page about the team member, and this is where we put the link to the Pecha Kucha as well.
That's really cool because you actually keep it as an asset for those people to remember. So I imagine, if you wanted to know something about a team member, you could just go look at their Pecha Kucha, and you get a reminder for maybe a gift that you should get them for the holidays, or you could use that in so many different ways. That's pretty cool. We did Pecha Kucha at Remote Year when I worked there, and it was only one slide. So you just had one slide and you had 30 seconds, and and we just go through it. So it was madness, and we do it virtually too. So it's like a virtual thing, and you don't know when your slide's coming up. So you're just like waiting. That's the anticipation part where you're just like freaking out, just like, okay, when's it gonna be my turn? And then there's always like a little bit of a delay on Zoom, so it would like come up, and then it's like you just hear silence, like the person hasn't started talking, and it's like 5-10 seconds has already gone by. So I imagine in person you can get a little bit more tightened up. So that's cool. Tell me about the reason you said that the reason people go into the office in Lithuania is for the coffee. What's so good about the coffee?
I don't know. It's just good, But I think the whole team were into coffee somehow, and I think when we're actually making our new office, I think at the time I was in New York City, and it was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and it was the time when everybody started working from coffee shops. So when I came back, I said, you know what, we need coffee shop inside the office so that people won't go out. So this is why we kind of bought the best possible coffee making machine, and we are all still into that. So it depends, Some people who are living in Vilnius, they are always in the office. Some of them never come to the office, so it's like it's up to them totally.
What do you view as the essential investments for your employees? And I see coffee and having coffee at the office as one of those, but what about for the people that are working remotely? What do you recommend, or what do you see that works for you guys as far as things that you give them?
So I don't think that coffee is actually a big investment, but I think the biggest investment for us is that we're having these vacations, these 2 weeks in a year when we travel all together to some place. It is really expensive to bring everybody, to Miami, let's say. But I think at the same time, I think it's really, really important for us to meet. And every time we have the meeting, we are really investing into activities that would make us grow as a team together. Mm-hmm. So like, starting from Pecha Kuchas, that is really nerve-wracking for everyone. And I'm going to other things like hot air balloons. It's fun, but at the same time, it was really extreme activity for some people, and we still remember that, and we're going to remember that forever. So I think every time we have a meeting, I'm saying that we're investing into experiences and memories as a team. And I do believe that it doesn't matter if it's a family or team or whatever, or with friends. I think investment into experiences, it's always a good investment.
I think that's a great point of view, to view it as an investment and to put those kind of memories at the topmost importance. Tell me a little bit more about some of the stuff that happens at these workations, because you mentioned one thing that just I automatically was so curious. It was about the psychologists that came with you on an 11-hour hike. And I mentioned that in the preview of this. So I think you got to talk about that.
Yeah. So one of the activities here in Lithuania, was that we got several actually psychologists that divided us into smaller groups, and then we hiked. And it was really strange hike because some of the guys, they had to be blindfolded. We had no map. It was really hectic, and it's really like psychologically kind of challenging. At the same time, we had psychologists going together with us, just noticing stuff. And I was surprised that in that 11-hour hike, we got to know each other so good, especially as a team, and how we work together, how we lead each other, how we trust or not trust each other. Do we want to be the first, or do we care about the team, let's say? The things that we can talk about forever, but in that hike, we just saw how we behave, you know, in extreme situations. And then we spent the whole day after the hike just discussing how we felt and what could be improved, and what was good or what was wrong. So I think in our case at that time, it was communication was something that could be improved in our case, because working remotely means that you are doing a lot of you're making a lot of decisions on your own, and you feel really responsible for everything that you are doing. So this is what we do as a team as well. You know, quite often we're making decisions without even having any discussion. You know, so it was really interesting way to learn more about each other. And for that hike, I had inspiration from the way they prepare, you know, astronauts to go to the space, because it is really kind of extreme thing to spend, you know, several months in small space with people who don't know much. So they are doing like real extreme hikes as well. And it's like hike. It's always kind of, it's not that complicated to make. And I think, you know, even like minimum thing, having just a hike without psychologists is always great, because this is the time when you can just speak with your team members with no kind of schedule.
So the idea to go blindfolded and to not have maps, that was your idea, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was my idea, but then I found the company that could do that properly.
Good. Wow, that must have been a really interesting experience. And I can't imagine after 11 hours what you'd be going through to try to just be like, hey, can we get this over with? Where are we? And we don't have a map. But then you go through those times of, so I think there's, forming, norming, storming. There's like all those stages of like team development, and they go through dysfunctional times, then they go through times where they thrive together, and having those moments where you are basically stripped of your ability to see or to know where you're going, that really calls for you to work as a group. So I think that's just an awesome thing. I have another recommendation that I think has always been an important part of my life since I tried it, was improv comedy. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but improv comedy and doing that with your coworkers and doing that as a group with some facilitation is really powerful. Now it's been something that's helped my communication out in every aspect of my life. So that's one thing that I see as kind of a parallel to, you know, some of this other stuff is bringing in facilitators, psychologists, improv, you know, comedy folks, whatever it is that you can do to bring in an element of like surprise and bring in some experts who can facilitate that change. I think that's awesome. So the last couple things here, you know, I looked online. You guys have a couple of roles open. You have an online reputation manager, PHP developer, performance copywriter. And one of the interesting things you told me was that you guys don't accept CVs. So I would love to hear your thought process behind that. And, you know, if someone were to want to work at MailerLite, like, how could they impress you?
So I think the one of the challenges in hiring remotely means that you're gonna have, well, first of all, is like you're gonna have a lot of CVs coming, because really right now it's really hot and a lot of people are searching for a remote job. But the issue while selecting with whom you should have interview or with whom you should, send a test assignment, it's really complicated because quite often you have no idea about the, universities that they graduated at, or their workspaces, or anyway, like you don't have any recommendations, you don't have any friends in common because they are from all over the world. And at the same time, we really wanted the people who are applying for MailerLite for any position in our team just to want to apply for us instead of just to search for any kind of job. And we wanted them to try our product and to understand what we're doing and to get them an idea if they could help, us to improve our product or anything inside the team. So this is how we came up with a decision. I think it's maybe 4 years ago. We just ask people to create newsletters, and we have questions that they have to answer, and they are creating a newsletter using our platform. So it means they do kind of they do try the platform and they know what we're working with. At the same time, it is kind of because it's like extra effort anyway. So the people who are doing that were much more kind of self-motivated to work with us. So quite often they're really reading everything they can find online about us. And this is why we're really transparent on our website about our values, how we work, what we do, what we don't do, maybe, just to make sure that people, before making a decision to create a newsletter, for them to understand if we are the right place for them. And and then they are creating the newsletters. And I think for me personally, it's much more interesting to read a newsletter. Sometimes it involves videos and people, we can see the personality behind, them. And especially for us, because we are a remote team. So written communication, as I said before, it's really important. So for us, it's really important to see how people express their ideas in written. And reading these newsletters and understanding how they think, because I think we write, when we see somebody writing something, you can understand how they're thinking. So it's easier to make decisions. So everybody, welcome to apply, but just be prepared that you're gonna have to create a newsletter. It doesn't matter what kind of position you're applying for.
It's genius. It's absolutely genius. And so, Ilma, I work with remote job seekers all the time. That's what I do, is teach people how to find remote positions. And one of the ways I advocate for people to stand out is to use the product to apply somehow. Now, I have an example because when I ended up working at Remote Year, I did Remote Year first. I did the program. So the more you can become either a customer or someone who has the customer experience to speak to it, the much, you're going to be able to impress them because you're going to have that knowledge. And I think for you guys, this, it's such a genius way to one, get people to either advocate or understand how to use the platform before applying. But like you said, they're self-qualifying. People who are willing to go through that process are always going to be a higher quality of candidate than someone who gets, sees that and says, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's too much work. It's not someone that you're going to want to hire anyway. So I think that that's really, really smart. And I think it's an awesome way to conduct that. So very cool. Any other thoughts on how companies during this time especially can succeed? You've had a remote first organization. We're obviously going through a really weird time right now. Any last kind of parting thoughts of how organizations might use this time to actually get ahead and actually develop remote policies and that sort of thing?
I think right now it's really important just to maybe sit down and understand what kind of meetings have to be video calls and what can be an email or what can be just written on Slack. And at the same time, I think it's really important to understand that we still have human beings in our teams and they have to connect. And I think managers, they have to think of the ideas how they could connect people like on personal level, on non-work related level. Maybe it can be, a Slack channel with, for example, recently we have a Slack channel called Question of the Day. So it's like different question every day. It can be, what is your favorite pizza topping, or like what have you done last weekend, whatever. Even though it's kind of fun, it's something that is not hard to do. And at the same time, it's so much fun, because this is how we start having conversations with people that we don't have any projects with.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important, especially if it's a bigger team, to think of the ways how people who are not work related could have conversations, because I think it will have a benefit for the whole business and the whole team,
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think having that cross-functional conversation, that just makes your entire organization stronger. And you never know, someone within the team who's over here in operations might have an idea for marketing, but if they had never connected, there might not be that opening or that pathway to speak about those types of things. And starting it with a more personal dialogue or a funny, question or something like that, it's really a good icebreaker. So I love that. I think it's fantastic. I've really enjoyed having you on here. I think MailerLite is doing a lot of amazing things. I appreciate you taking 30 minutes to be my first test subject on this series. It was awesome, and the Wi-Fi held, which I'm so grateful for. So thank you so much again, Ilma, for coming out. And for everybody out here who's tuned in, keep wandering. You're not lost.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much.